Well, good morning, church family. It's so good to see you guys here this morning. I have the honor and privilege of sharing the word with you. I first want to say thank you to Pastor Mark and Deb for allowing me this opportunity. We are kicking off a new series, and that is kind of fun. I like new things, especially when we're in a different season. So this one does have to do with Christmas, which is one of my favorite holidays. We are fresh off The Chosen and the Binge Jesus series, so I hope today as I talk about character of Mary, I hopefully can bring her to life for you, not visually like we've seen so many of the other characters from the Bible, but just through my words. So we are almost in December, and different households have different varying levels of Christmas decorations already, right? Sometimes houses are divided about this. So November 1st hit, and here in the office, Bailey and I decided we were ready for Christmas music on November 1st. We both were on the same page, and we had a plan. So we started listening to Christmas music. That night I went home, and I said to Mike, so how early is too early to decorate for Christmas? And he has a great rule of thumb that I think we've adopted, although I don't like it very much because I like Christmas decorations early, but I can understand it. He said, you know what, can we wait until the pumpkins on the front porch have rotted before we start putting up some Christmas decorations? So we did. We kind of compromised. We did a little bit a few days before Thanksgiving, and then we finished up yesterday, and I just love sitting in the same room as some of the Christmas lights and being able to read and just sit by the fire and all the fun stuff that has to do with Christmas. But we are going to talk about the birth of Jesus, and I welcome that talk year-round. Amen? Today, as we talk about this series titled Generous God, we will focus on Mary, the mother of Jesus. And the title of it is Mary Gave Herself. We will reflect on her and see what gift she has given to us. In particular, she was very important in the story because she birthed the ultimate gift. Amen? We are very thankful to her for that. So the text actually today is in Luke chapter 1, and we will focus on this second portion of this chapter, but I want to bring you up to speed on what happens at the beginning of Luke chapter 1. See, what happens is there's something to celebrate here, and that is that Zechariah and Elizabeth find out that they will be blessed with the gift of a son, and they are older in age, and he will later be known as John the Baptist. So with all the creative ways that we have currently for announcing pregnancy, you've probably seen them. People make videos. Sometimes they do the gender reveals where they pop a balloon, and on the inside is either pink or blue, or they cut into a cake. There's lots of fancy ways to announce birth. It seems like this is actually a new one, a visit from an angel, not one that you commonly see. It's not trending right now on any social media. But in the Bible, it was kind of cool that this was how this happened. So, I think it's important to share that Elizabeth was finding out about this and was kind of, shocked by it as well. She was in the state of life that she was expecting, and yet it wasn't during a time that she was thinking she was going to expect. She was suspected to be about 88 years old and finding out that she was pregnant. And at the same time, Mary, who is just a teenager, is pledged to be married to someone. So those are two different life things happening, right? Elizabeth's expecting but has been married, and then Mary is expecting to get married, and yet kind of all of that changes. If we could talk more about what that looks like, when you think of Mary being, betrothed or, pledged to Joseph, we probably think of modern day engagement, right? This exciting time. That this wasn't exactly like what it is for us currently. Joseph didn't go to Jared's and pick out the cutest, little diamond to give her. It actually, as I was doing some research, it looked a little bit different. I think it wasn't as flippant, maybe, as we have it sometimes be currently. It says in the New Daily Study Bible that being pledged or betrothed was absolutely binding. It lasted for 1 year. During that year, the couple were known as husband and wife, although they had not the rights of husband and wife. And this is important to note. It could not be terminated in any other way than by divorce. So present day, if something changes, change your mind, you just give the ring back and go on your way. Back in the Bible times, it was not exactly like this. So Mary was in this place of life that she was expecting to be married to Joseph, and this wasn't something that she was going to back out of, even with extreme circumstances, which we will get to in a little bit. So as you turn to Luke 1:26 in your Bible, or if you have the YouVersion app on your phone, if you're online, we'll also share a link to that as well, or if you have paper notes, you can follow along. I don't know if you can relate to understanding what's going on with, Elizabeth and Mary. See, they were in these two different places in life, and yet they were cousins. They had a good relationship with each other. And I love this part of the story because I think that's very important. They both were receiving news that was kind of shocking, and yet they were there for each other. So let's go ahead and read a little bit about the next portion of this story. It starts in Luke 1:26. In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin that was pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you." Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." "How will this be?" Mary asked the angel, "since I'm a virgin?" So, all right, once again, we're seeing this trend about, in the Bible times, birth announcements from angels. I think what's really interesting in this is that, the angel is just telling her all these details. Even the name. How many picking out a name sometimes can be kind of hard? And here, she didn't even have to worry about that part of it either. He also gave her a glimpse into what the future of this child, would be like. And I can imagine a mother's heart, those are things that you think of. Like, what are my kids, going to do when they're older? What are they going to like? These were all kind of laid out to her so she could understand more about the bigger plan. What's interesting is that, Mary knew that she was in a different season of life. She was planning a wedding. That's what was on her mind. And it was kind of interesting that she was, as it says, greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. I think she had wedding on the mind. She probably had, was thinking, oh, this must have something to do with this pending, exciting time of my life. And it was just very different than what she thought it was going to be. Other translations use the word perplexed. I can imagine that's what she was, finding out this information and having an angel there in front of her. So she started, with those feelings in the beginning, but by the end, she hears a plan. It's actually a really well thought through plan, but it includes her. Actually, she's a very important part of this plan. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever had someone make plans for you before. I do have to tell you, I am a little bit guilty of this myself. My personality type is I like to fix things or troubleshoot things. So somebody will say to me, "Oh, hey, I have this thing that needs to be moved to my house, and I can't." And I'll be like, my husband, he'll be over after. Let me look at my calendar. Oh, yep, we share calendars. So I'm like, oh, yeah, he has availability tomorrow. I will send him over, and he can help you with that whole thing. Now, do I ask him beforehand? Maybe not. I'm kind of working on that. But my heart is to be able to, help make this happen. I make plans for my husband and kids probably too often than I like to admit. And my daughter in particular, sometimes I know her gifting set, and somebody will once again say, "Oh, I need somebody to walk my dog in the middle, whatever." "Oh, hold on a second. My daughter, she'll come and do it." And then she gets home off the bus. Like, "Hey, so this is what we're doing." "Oh, okay, well, I didn't know about that." But that's just how we roll. But in this situation, Mary is being told some really big plans, not just letting out the neighbor's dog, some really big plans that she is going to be a part of. And I think what's interesting is the angel doesn't ask. The angel says, "You will," and continues on, explaining all the things that she will do. Now, who here can be honest and say, it doesn't always go well when someone tells you what to do? Can you be honest? You don't really like being told what to do, right? Now, there's some of you that didn't even raise your hand because I told you to raise your hand, and you didn't even want to do that because I told you to do it. But no, I understand that completely. And then we have other people have personalities that they want to be told, right? If husband doesn't always know what to wear, and he really enjoys that his wife will just pick something out and send it out for him, so he doesn't have to make those decisions. He welcomes that. We have varying levels of what we like to be told to do or not to do, and compliance is kind of a big part of that. Now, Mary has heard the plan, and she does have a follow-up question. I mean, it's one question. I can imagine she had many others in her mind, but this was the one that she had said. And in another translation, it says, "Can this be, since I do not know a man?" Now, we know that the word "know" is not talking about an understanding of the man. It's talking about a more physical sense. But we know that Mary was a virgin, and here she's hearing a plan, but not really understanding how all this is going to work. So we're going to continue in Scripture, and the angel will lay out some more of the details. Starting in verse 35, it says, "The angel answered, 'The Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she who has said to be unable to conceive is in her 6th month. For no word from God will ever fail.'" So she was told some more details about the plan. She even found out from the angel that Elizabeth is expecting. And I wonder if that happens for a few reasons. First of all, to bring credibility a little bit to it. Like, okay, we've got a miracle happening here. This is not my first time. Okay, we've also had a miracle happen over here. This is Elizabeth. This is what's going on. Or do you think it was also to kind of create a situation to let her know that she's not alone? That as she will be expecting this firstborn son, a gift from God, that she would have someone else to kind of be there alongside her during the time. So the next words are from Mary, and I think what's really interesting is that she accepted it. She accepted all that was said to her, and she took it as a plan that she was on board for. In verse 38, it says, "I am the Lord's servant," Mary answered. "May your word to me be fulfilled." And then the angel left her. So now she kind of understands what the plan is, really big news, and you kind of wonder what she did next. If we continue in verse 39, it says, "At that time, Mary got ready, and she hurried to a town in the hill country of Judea, where she entered Zechariah's home and greeted Elizabeth. When Elizabeth heard Mary's greeting, the baby leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. In a loud voice, she explained, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is this child that you will bear. But why am I so favored that the mother of my Lord should come to me? And as soon as the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the baby in my womb leaped for joy. Blessed is she who has believed that the Lord will fulfill his promises to her." I do love this little sneak peek moment between the two moms-to-be. I love the part where it even says that in a loud voice she exclaimed. It's one of those moments we've probably all had the privilege of being around, and it could be that, somebody got that job that they were just really hoping for. They graduated from high school or college, or they're expecting, or they're getting married, or even that there's been a great healing in their life or a miracle in their own life. And what happens is this physical response. And that's exactly what we see here, that in a loud voice that they were excited and I just even imagine like a, kind of moment that they had together of just, yes, this is like really happening. And even Elizabeth, in this moment, she stops and even is, I think, very humble herself in saying, "How is it that you're even here with me? Like, you're now going to be the mother of Jesus. How are you even in my midst?" So I love this. So as I was reading through this, and I went on to read Mary's song, which is the next portion of scripture that we're going to read, I had kind of a rabbit trail. And this happens sometimes when I study because I think my mind starts processing all this information and I start trying to figure it out. So at this point, we know that Mary is going to have Jesus. So I start thinking about that, and I think about baby Jesus. I'm like, oh, I wonder what he looked like. And I remember saying to Chloe when she was expecting a few months ago, I was like, what is he going to look like? Will he have dark hair? Will he have curly hair? Will he have light hair? Will he look like his brother? Will he look like you? I just want to know what he is going to look like. That's the exciting part for me, is like that first picture when you get to meet him in person. It's like, what are they going to look like? So I started thinking, okay, what did Jesus look like as a little baby? Was he chubby and he had the cheeks? Was he really long? Did he, I don't know. It's where my mind was going. And then I started thinking about, well, where would these physical attributes come from? Then I started thinking, wait, hold on a second. So if God is the Father, but Mary's giving birth, did Jesus have physical attributes from Mary? Can anyone else tell me, have you ever thought of this question? Did Mary, when Jesus first opened his eyes when he was born, was it like they were looking like, oh, that's Mary's eyes. He's got Mary's eyes. Or was God like, you know what? He is not going to look anything like her. I've got this whole other thing going on, and you're going to look at him and go, oh, he had to have gotten that from God, because look at that. That's not even something that Mary has. So yes, so this is the little rabbit trail that my brain is going on, and I'm trying to kind of think into that. And then I thought about the saying that people sometimes say, like mother, like daughter. I heard that a lot growing up. I was very much like my mom, and a lot of our likes, and my dad would call me Little Carol because my mom's name was Carolyn. So, I kind of was used to that, but I'm thinking, okay, so what kind of similarities did they have? And I was reading through this next portion of scripture where Mary is kind of sharing her heart and understanding what's going to happen. I started seeing things, we don't know exactly what Jesus looked like or what Mary looked like. We can't say, oh yeah, for sure, this is what happened. But as I was reading through Mary's song, I saw attributes, words that were used to describe her, that I all of a sudden started thinking, but that's how Jesus is too. I almost kind of started thinking, it's like mother, like son. Like there were things of her, attributes, not physical, but more on the inside, the heart, the little things that were taught, I think, and ingrained in him from a young age from her that you just see as he lived out his life and did so much, that Mary, his mother, had so many of those same attributes. So I actually have 4 of them. There's probably way more of them, but I just started pairing together an attribute and how Mary showed this and how Jesus showed this. So we're going to continue on, and I'm going to share some of these with you as well. One of the things I did think about, do you think that of all these 4 attributes, would Mary have had all of these if she had not been who she was? I do think a lot of these she picked up and they were exemplified as she was the mother of Jesus. She had her own set of growing pains that she had to figure out, and learning moments on how to parent Jesus and to go through this time. So this brings us to Luke 1, 46 through 56, known as the Song of Mary, or the Magnificat, which is Latin for "My soul magnifies the Lord." And this is the response to her cousin Elizabeth. And Mary's words, I think, are still impactful today. So let's listen to them. And Mary said, "My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant." So it's that word humble that first stood out to me. So that's the first attribute or characteristic I'd like to talk about. And so let's first talk about Mary, humble. That sounds like a word that obviously was used, to describe her. I think what's interesting in this scripture is that she first starts with, "My soul glorifies the Lord." So the first thing that she does is glorify the Lord. And then she says basically that he's been mindful of the humble state that she has kept herself in. And then I found this scripture I thought was kind of interesting because it's later in Luke. It's Luke 11:27. And I almost feel like it's Jesus who's helping keep his mom humble. Not that she needed to be kept humble, but more to the people. I'll read it and then explain a little bit more. It says, as he said these things, a woman in the crowd raised her voice and said to him, "Blessed is the womb that bore you, and the breasts at which you nursed." But he said, "Blessed rather are those who hear the word of God and keep it." So it seems like people were talking, and then somebody just thinks, how blessed is your mom? This is one of those good times when people are like, your mama, because basically they were acknowledging and recognizing, wow, there's somebody who is a human that said yes to being your mom and going through all of that stuff. But what I think in this situation is that it wasn't that Jesus didn't want to give credit to his mom. I think he was very thankful and appreciative of her. But he wanted to make sure that people didn't make her a god. As they were there together, they didn't want it to become this thing where all of a sudden all the talk was about Mary and just making her to be something that she shouldn't be, because she was a humble person. And to just kind of bring it back to the Word of God, that sounds like our Jesus, right? So his response that says, yeah, she's great, but blessed rather are those who hear the Word of God and keep it. It was kind of almost his way of just saying, you can be as blessed as my mom was if you keep the Word of God and if you keep things in the right priority. I love reading that scripture and seeing that he was just making sure that keep the main thing the main thing. So if we're talking about being humble, let's talk about Jesus and how he was humble. He had this characteristic, I think we saw it in a whole lot of places, but throughout his life on earth, he demonstrated a spirit of profound humility. Okay, so he is literally the number one person in the world, and yet never acts like it, ever. He always prefers people over himself. Matthew 20:28 says, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Even on his last night with his disciples, he took a towel and a basin and he washed their dirty feet. And then he instructed them to do this same thing to others, to live a life of servanthood. So I think that's just one of the many ways that he was humble. So these attributes that I'm going to share with you, they're a gift. They're a gift that we can all receive and apply to our lives. But, gifts kind of fall into usually two categories. There are ones that you can put on a shelf and you can look at, and you have other ones that you use them all the time. A good example, Mike collects Pez dispensers and pop figures. So we get some of those for him for Christmas, and he has these nice shelves. They're organized. He has a certain way to put them, and he loves looking at them. We love the aesthetic that it brings to our house, and it's just a fun thing our kids can always get for him and that sort of thing. So that is more of a gift that doesn't get used. We don't sit around having Pez, as a late night snack or after dinner mint or anything like that. The dispensers are on the wall, and we just get to look at them and enjoy them. But there's other gifts, like maybe a mixer that you might get for Christmas, and that's one of those gifts. Do you want it to sit there, or do you want to use it? I think your family wants you to use it, like for cookies or breads or whatever it may be. That's one of the gifts that you want to put to use pretty often. So these 4 words that I'm going to share with you, they're all gifts that should be put to work in our life, not something that should just be on a shelf. We should look at it and say, oh, that's good that Mary and Jesus were both really humble. Good for them. This should be something that we take off the shelf and we use in our life as well. So I do have a takeaway, and that is that we need to focus on humility, to be a giver, not a taker. And I think that example through Mary and Jesus help show us. I can give you so many personal examples. Unfortunately, we live in a world, it's not always the most common thing to be humble. Actually, people want to pride themselves on things, sometimes in a very unhealthy way, or they're self-seeking or wanting to get a head up, even on the shoulders of other people, and just it's a negative thing in our lives. But, even as I'm sharing and talking about this, there might be something in you that just kind of, piques a little bit of interest, because this is something that you also have struggled with before. So let's continue on, and we are going to pick up actually in verse 48, and it says, "From now on, all generations will call me blessed." Now this is Mary speaking. "For the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation." I believe that this is showing us that Mary and Jesus were future-minded. And in the way that Mary was future-minded is at the time she's sharing, she knows generations will call her blessed. And that means that she knew that this story would be told for many generations to come. She understood her part in it, and she understood the gift that she'd be giving to humanity by giving of herself. I want to think that she understood that she was actually history in the making in the moment. Her faithfulness had an impact on others, and it wasn't going to stop at just giving birth to a boy. That's the part that I love about Mary. It wasn't like, all right, give birth to Jesus, my job is done. She understood how important it was for her to be future-minded. Now let's talk about Jesus, times he was future-minded. Even in the Great Commission, he sets a plan in motion for bringing people to understand we need to be future-minded. It says, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and earth have been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age.'" Jesus didn't want it to just stop with him, and neither should we. I think that it's important for us to have that ministry mind of just, there's other generations, there's other people in our life that can be impacted by us. So the takeaway for this one is to focus on giving to the next generation. Now, I can't say enough about this. Part of it is probably because my husband has been working with Next Gen and teens for over 25 years, and I can just see the passion and the importance of getting to the next generation. But I personally can tell you, being the mom of 3 kids, that I need other people to help feed into my children. It's an important part of their upbringing. Mike and I can't do it all by ourselves, and I have always been thankful for people that have chosen to invest in my children. I think back on even my upbringing, and I loved having people in my life, aunts, that years later you find out, hold on a second, I've called them Aunt so-and-so for years, but they're not actually my aunt. They're just such a close friend of the family that's what we've called them. And they were the ones that I would call when I didn't understand, my parents didn't understand me. And I would call her, and it was like just people in my life that were there for just the moments that I needed them to be. It isn't always just about kids either. There's somebody younger than you. There's somebody the same age as you. There's people around you that you can be giving to and investing in around you as well. We just have to have that same future-minded mentality like Mary and Jesus did as well. So in the last 4 verses of her song, she speaks of the wondrous things that God has done for her ancestors, for her, and for all who will believe. Her recognition of these great and mighty deeds that God has performed and the mercies that were given to the people of Israel is very significant. She's telling us that while she may be nervous and at the situation that she's in, she knows that God has it all under control. She's resting on that he would not give her this blessing only to abandon her. It says in verse 51, "He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, and he has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty." So this is part of Mary's song because she's, I think, just remembering all of God's faithfulness and just reassuring herself that it's going to be okay. So the next attribute is mighty deeds. And I put in parentheses the word strength because that's really what it is. When you hear mighty deeds, at least present day, this doesn't mean that, that we need to do more to earn God's love. Not that kind of deeds. Instead, it really is a strength. It's the things that you can count on, knowing that God was very faithful during times. So when you look at the word strength, let's start with Mary. Her strength was her willingness to birth Jesus. All that was on the line for her relationship with Joseph, all the options for her reputation to be, looked at poorly, the repercussions, for even her family. There were so many things that she could look at and choose to not do this thing. But, as long as we're talking about strength, I also want to point out that her conception was miraculous. But to say that her pregnancy or even her birth itself was without any of the natural things that a mother would go through isn't right. She still had to go through that. She had to bear all of that to bring him into the world. She felt the pain. She probably anticipated, she knew that was going to happen. And yet she was willing to give of herself to be a willing vessel. And it wasn't just for the act of birth. She was there for it all. Like I said, she was there for his life, and she was committed to the plan to see through her part of it. God's gift came through Mary, and one of the things to note is that she was the only person who was there at his birth and also at his death. What strength that she must have had to have as a mom to see him in both states. What emotions she must have felt when he was born, just that overwhelming joy and gratitude for being chosen to be his mom. And yet standing at that cross and seeing how people treated him, talked about him, that's her boy on the cross. I think she always had a perspective that, yes, it's God's son. But I think a mother's heart had to go through that part, and I think she had a deep strength that we may not give her enough credit for. So let's talk about Jesus' strength. It was different. He had strength to face the cross, his ultimate death, knowing that something like that was going to happen. His willingness was kind of a different vein, but it was still very, very important. He knows this, and he talked to his disciples about it in John 16:33. It says, "I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world." It takes a whole lot of strength to overcome the world. We might look at our dads and be like, oh, they can do anything. But in this situation, Jesus literally could do everything, but it all came with a price. So sometimes we can feel overwhelmed by just one situation in our life. Every day there's probably something that comes up that you're discouraged or overwhelmed or feel like you don't have enough strength to get through it. And I think it's important to remember that we can draw from the strength that God has. So let's focus on, this is a takeaway for the day, God's mighty deeds, and find strength in his strength, knowing that it's there. He did so much for us. We need to find the strength in him, not in ourselves. Let's continue in Mary's song, verse 54. She's reflecting and said, "He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, just as he promised our ancestors." So the last one is the word merciful. So Mary is actually called the mother of mercy. And when I read that, I was thinking, what does that even mean? Did she have to show mercy? Was mercy shown to her? And I was thinking more about the whole Immaculate Conception. There's just mercy through and through this story. See, this whole plan is the fruition of God's mercy on all of us. Because Mary didn't merit to be chosen. Sure, we read that she did some really great things. Obviously, she had these attributes that were reflecting God, but it wasn't that she did enough good stuff in her life. There wasn't this meter, and as she was making this decision or that decision, she's getting closer and closer and closer. And then at the top, ding, 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 you get to be Jesus' mother. That wasn't the case at all. Instead, God had a plan, and he found favor with her, knowing that she had done a lot in her life, but yet it was not just based on that, and she was not perfect. That's important to note. Nor did she ask for it. There wasn't an application process that, she had to write down all these great things that she did and how wonderful she was. This is something that was done in her and for her by God. I think that's important to note, that she was bringing into this world basically the answer that she would need many years from now. This was the solution that he would actually save her when the time comes. And I think that is just an awesome plan. I have a quote by Pope John Paul II. It says that Mary is the one who experienced mercy in an exceptional way, as no one else. There's no one else that can talk about, this experience. It wasn't, replicated. It happened one time, and Mary was the one who was chosen to do that. So we're talking about mercy. Let's talk about Jesus. He lived out his life showing mercy very regularly. He met broken people, physically, emotionally, mentally. He saw so much more in people than just what met the eye. And his most prominent request that was made in the Gospels is actually the quote of, "Have mercy on me." We see it in Matthew 9, 15, 17, 20, Mark 10, Luke 16, 17, 18, 38 through 39. It's just all over the place. When word got out about all that could be done through our Jesus, people were just saying, "Have mercy on me," very often because of whatever their current state was. And he did. He showed mercy time and time again. He didn't have a limit. He didn't say, well, I'm going to go ahead and heal 50 people. Once I reach 50, that's kind of my limit. And then you can, that's it. We're like all done. He, in every situation, you could almost read when you read some of the accounts that it's like, he's like, all right, how can I show mercy in this situation? And then he would act accordingly. Micah 6:8 says, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Those three things: to act justly, to love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. That idea of loving mercy, it's almost like it's our go-to. You love it so much. You have favorite things in your life. Oh, it's my favorite sweater. I love it. Mercy should be one of those that we slip on because we love it. And we love to be Jesus to other people, where we show mercy where it's not expected either. That's a lot about what we read in the scripture, right? People were asking for him to show mercy, but they are surprised when it really happens because it wasn't happening everywhere else. He had something special. So the takeaway for this is to focus on showing mercy like you have been shown. Because much like Mary is reflecting on the way that God's been faithful to her people for generations, we can also reflect and know that we've been shown a mercy like no other. We just have to think back on one of our roughest times. Those times that you really wouldn't want replayed on a big screen for anyone else to see, because it really is not your best moment. And yet, God's showing us mercy time and time again. It's his MO, what he does for us. And so we should focus on being able to show that same mercy to other people around us. So Mary gave herself to this plan. And as we see the plan in its fullness, we can see how important her peace was in all of this. It was a great gift, a gift that literally keeps on giving, as salvation is open to everyone all the time, and generations in the future will still be able to receive this gift that generations before us helped make possible. So there are these 4 words that Mary said that Jesus also had these same attributes. I just think they're kind of good examples for us. And they're things that we should strive to embody. We should strive to have these same things said of us. You know, when the day comes and someone's talking about our lives, to be able to say that we were humble, that we really had our mind, our eyes on the next generation or the future, that we had a strength that only came from the Lord, and that we were merciful to the people around us. Now, we're not perfect, we know that, but we should have these things as a standard to say, this is how I want to live my life. Go ahead and close your eyes with me. You might be here today, and as I'm recounting this awesome story of Mary, it may hit you different ways. You may think, that's just a story. It's like a fairy tale. I've grown up hearing it for many years, all about Mary. I even have a manger at my house, and it has Mary with the baby there, and so that's a nice story. We like to tell it around Christmas. And yet, there is so much more to the story because it really happened. And it goes back to your belief system of understanding God's word and understanding God's plan. And I hope that that's real to you today, that you believe in that. You believe in the miracles that we read about. You believe the miracles that still happen today. And as you're taking a moment to just reflect on what that reality looks like in your life, how this story that happened many years ago still can impact you today. In your life, when you leave from this place today, what will that look like? We do have these 4 things to consider: being humble, future-minded, having a strength that comes from the Lord, and showing mercy. So, church, I just give you a minute to reflect on those. Maybe just find one that you know is an area that you could grow in, that you want to be more like Jesus, and Mary, for that matter, in this area. Lord God, I pray that you would do a great work in the people that are here. Lord, we're depending on it. Lord, we know that your word is so true. As we read each of these scriptures, we understand that we take it as our mission to live a life worthy to be called your child. We want to live a life that tells other people, so that the gospel that doesn't stop with this generation, it continues on for many generations to come. So Lord, I just pray that we would be reflective on how we can do better, we can be better, and we can learn from Mary. We can try on some of the things that she went through and be able to think about what that must have felt like, and to put things in perspective for us. Church, you might be here today and you think, I don't have that relationship to begin with Jesus. I hear about him being a baby. I hear about him dying on a cross. I want to know more about that. And we will have prayer team members at the end that you can just talk with about that. If you have not had a moment, you can look back and know that you prayed to accept Jesus into your heart, to turn, to be able to talk about the things that you've done. That we are not all perfect, but to be able to put those things at the foot of the cross and pick up what he has for you going forward. I encourage you to find a way to do that today. So Lord, I just pray that you would seal what was done here. Lord, to help give us strength where we need to rely on you. In your name we pray. Amen. Church, let's sing this chorus, I believe in you, that you're the God of miracles, and just to underscore that this is really true and this is really God's plan for us.
I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God of miracles. I believe in you. I believe in you. You're the God
us today. We're just on week 1 of this series. Come back next week. We'll be talking about Joseph and dive into that a little bit more. I want to invite the prayer teams to come forward, and I know during worship we had an opportunity for you to pray with someone. If there's anything else that you would like to have someone just stand with you in prayer about, please come forward. If you're online, know that the host is there to pray with you as well. Hope everyone has a great week, and we will see you next Sunday.